Now I'd like to introduce our last speaker. Jess Ekstrom is the founder and CEO of Headbands for Hope, a company she started as a junior in college in 2012. For every headband sold, a headband is given to a child with cancer. Jess's first brush with success was selling all of her toys on eBay when she was 12. Since then, Ekstrom and Headbands for Hope have been featured on Today and Good Morning America, as well as in 17 Magazine, Vanity Fair, Forbes, and People. Ekstrom is also a regular guest on QVC and has written a book called Chasing the Bright Side. And most importantly, she's most proud that Headbands of Hope has donated over 500,000 headbands, reaching every children's hospital in the United States. Jess, please take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you guys so much for having me. I have some slides here. So a few quick facts before we dive in. I am currently living in an Airstream trailer. That is, it's what started as a book tour is now like our full-time home on wheels. So I'm taking a quick break at our house in Raleigh, but we'll go back out again in a couple months back in the Airstream. I also published Chasing the Bright Side with HarperCollins, and one of my claims to fame was when I was recording the audiobook on this next slide. Chris Stapleton was actually in the studio recording music. So it was really cool to see him and brush shoulders while recording the audiobook. But today I'm going to tell you guys about how I started my company, Headbands of Hope. And similar to what Jennifer was saying, I feel like it was a moment that actually found me. I had no plan to be an entrepreneur. I had no idea what I was doing, as you'll learn in this story. But I actually started in the most magical place on earth. If anyone here has ever been to Disney World before, when I was at NC State, I did what's called the Disney College Program. And so I went down to Disney World. I was a PhotoPass photographer. So for those of you who have your cameras on, raise your hand if you've ever been to Disney World. And then raise your hand if you know those people who want to take your picture all the time in Disney with those vests on. That was me. And I got to take pictures of people from all over the world. I got to work for this amazing company. But my favorite thing that I got to do when I was there was I got to take pictures of kids who were there on their wish through the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So if anyone is unfamiliar, Make-A-Wish grants wishes to kids with life-threatening illnesses. And so going to Disney World was the most popular wish among Make-A-Wish kids. So I was the one that got to photograph them, like meeting the princess or seeing the castle for the first time. And it was truly just like the best part of my day to just be this small part of theirs. And so when I got back to school, my sophomore year, I applied for an internship at Make-A-Wish in Charlotte. And when I was there, I wasn't really doing the most, glamorous things. I wasn't organizing these huge galas or calling Taylor Swift or doing things that you think maybe you might do interning for Make-A-Wish. I was doing a lot of behind the scenes work, medical release forms. Like licking envelopes, cold calling people for money, usually getting hung up on most of the time. But it was the first time in my life when I was interning for Make-A-Wish that I could connect what I was doing in that moment to why I was doing it. And even the things that felt so small and tedious, I could draw a straight line to helping make a wish come true. And so I started to have this revelation, at 17, 18 years old, thinking that maybe our lives and these careers that we choose for ourselves don't have to be something that we clock in and clock out and, just get a paycheck every few weeks. It can be something every day when our alarm goes off, we know that it matters that we're there. So it was towards the end of my internship, and I had tried to work really hard, and they wanted to give me a little bit more responsibility to round out the summer before I went back to school. So they assigned me a wish child, and her name was Renee, and she really wanted to go to Disney World to meet Sleeping Beauty. And she was very clear about the terms of this agreement. She's like, I don't want to just go to Disney World. Got to meet Sleeping Beauty. Red line was in there. And so I was the one who got to call the parks and make sure that Sleeping Beauty was there for all of their meals. I made a salon appointment for her at the Bippity Boppity Boutique, which is definitely a thing. And I planned this going away party with her and all of her friends that was princess themed. And little by little, her wish started to come together. And it wasn't until about a week before she was scheduled to go on her wish to Disney that she started to have some symptoms flare up. And they were concerned about it. So they sent her to the hospital and they did some scans. And she had been in this new treatment plan for her brain tumor at that point. And up until that point, they thought that this new treatment had been working. And then in that appointment, they realized that there was something that they had missed and something that wasn't working anymore. And her tumor was starting to grow back. And they said that she was too sick to go on her wish to Disney World. She couldn't fly or drive. And they decided that it would be best to send her home and focus on quality of life. And I remember being in the Make-A-Wish offices that day and thinking, like, this can't be the story. You know, like, we have these experiences in our life. And if you'll change to that next slide, these experiences that are these tangible events that happen that we can't control. You know, we can't control how cold it was in Raleigh this past week. We can't control a global pandemic. We can't control if our flight gets in on time or if our neighbor's dog starts barking, you know, when we have a virtual Zoom. Those are all of our experiences. But our stories, if you'll switch to the next one, is how we internalize and respond to our experiences. So although we can't always control this like chess pieces of our life, we can always write the story of what it means to us and what we do next. And so I went onto Google and I looked up local costume shops. And a few hours later, I arrived on her doorstep dressed as Sleeping Beauty and tried to make her wish come true that day. And I brought her this matching dress and this crown that said Princess Renee, and read her the story of Sleeping Beauty and tried to spend the whole day with her in character. She totally bought it. And this moment was like one of the clearest before and after moments of my life. I mean, everything that I thought I was walking up to those steps was different walking down them. And I think sometimes when we think about doing good in the world, we think about all of like the bright side of it and all of the positivity and the results. But the reality is that a lot of times the good stuff is built in the bad, because hard times actually give us a choice. They can be the excuse as to why we do less, or they can be the reason as to why we do more. One story can write two completely different endings. If you'll switch to the next slide to show this. One of my favorite analogies is that boiling water can soften a potato, but harden an egg. So it's not as much about the circumstance as it is about the subject. When you think about any great movement that has happened, you know, Me Too, Black Lives Matter, civil rights, none of those things began when times were good. Because when times are good, why change? Everything's fine here. It's the hard times where the innovators, the philanthropists, the activists, when stuff actually gets done. And so that's why it's important to just be aware. Look for things that are looking for us. And one of the things that I realized with girls like Renee who lose their hair to chemotherapy, they loved to wear headbands after hair loss. If you'll go to the next slide and show. So many kids would be offered a wig or they'd be given a hat. And a lot of them weren't really concerned with covering up their heads. They just wanted something they could feel good about themselves after losing their hair to chemotherapy. So I was 19 years old. I was a sophomore in college. I was studying communications, had no idea how to start a business, but I decided I was going to start a company called Headbands of Hope. And for every headband sold, we're going to donate one to a child with an illness. If you'll go to the next slide too. I was a communication student. I couldn't even spell entrepreneur, but I decided to give it a shot. So I tried to look at what I had. Okay, I'm at a college campus. I have resources around me. I walked over to the business school, asked professors for like 15 minutes of their time. I'm like, okay, what are taxes and should I be concerned about them? When I needed a logo, I walked over to the graphic design school. I waited for a class to get out. And this class was one that I was not in. And I approached the teacher And I told her, I was like, you know, what would be a great idea is if for your next class assignment, everyone had to create me a logo and I got to pick the best one. Doesn't that sound like fun? And that was how I got my first logo for Headbands of Hope. I needed a website to sell the headbands on, and I couldn't even operate a Microsoft Word document. And so I met with computer design students every day for lunch for them to teach me Shopify and Photoshop, and I paid them in Chipotle burritos. And that was how I got my first website. So little by little, things started to come together, not by focusing on what I didn't have, but by focusing on what was right in front of me. And so April 25th, 2012, I launched my website, my junior year of college. My first order was from my mom. My second order was from my grandpa. And I honestly didn't get an order from someone that I didn't know until about 5 months later. But today, if you'll go to the next slide, we've been in People Magazine, Vanity Fair. I'll be on QVC for International Women's Day, so you can check me on that. We've had some celebrities that are wearing our headbands, like Leah Michelle, Lauren Conrad, even the Kardashians, which that could be a good or bad thing, depending on how you feel about the Kardashians. And we're at about 2,000 retail locations all over the world. But my favorite thing, if you'll go to the next slide, is we've actually been able to host DIY headband days at children's hospitals where kids can actually design and create their own headbands. And we are creeping on very closely. I think we'll hit it next month, donating 1 million headbands to kids with illnesses. So we are very excited to hit that milestone. But I think to round this up, and I feel like this is like speed style story, which I'm like, got to cover all the bases. One thing that I want to point out is I think starting this company, I always thought that success was right around the corner from me. You know, if I could just get this one thing, then I'll be happy. If I can just get this revenue goal, if I can just hire employees, if I can just, you know, give a TED talk, then I'll be happy. If I can just get a book deal, if I can just get a major retailer or a celebrity to wear our headbands, then I'll feel something. And then all of those things happened, every single one of them. And they would just come and go. And then I started to think, well, what's wrong with me? Because everyone else around me is happier for me than I am for myself. You know, what is it that I'm missing here? And it wasn't until a particular story that I don't have enough time to share, but I realized that all of those things that I just listed are my achievements. Achievements are these tangible milestones that show that we're on the right track. You know, maybe you got an award at your school. Maybe you got a promotion at your work. Maybe you got, you know, a certain viral TikTok video, whatever it might be. Those things that you can measure are achievements. But success is something that can't be measured. It can only be felt. So think about what it is that you're chasing. And if no one else knew about it, would it still matter to you? Because success is not what it looks like to others. It's only what it feels like to you. So thank you everyone for listening. I know I would love to be there in person and see all you guys, but this has been really fun. So thank you guys for having me.